All right, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about things to consider when you are writing a offer. And there's a handout, and I know that many of you are looking for a handout. And you can download the handout from that link. So why don't you, download the handout from that link. And I will paste it in a couple of times. Some of you could help me because people will be joining later and then, all of that sort of stuff. And then they'll be saying, where's the handout? All right, so let's do this. All right. Things to do in making an offer. Now, I'm going to admit that this session is somewhat self-serving for me. And the reason I would say it's self-serving is I coach and mentor a decent number of real estate agents. And what happens is the agent has a buyer. The buyer wants to make an offer. So the agent contacts me and says, my client wants to make an offer on this property. What should we do? What should we offer? How much should we offer? Or they'll say, well, this is the property and the client wants to offer this amount. Do you think that's a good offer? And those are difficult questions to answer when you just initially tell somebody you're interested in making an offer. Right? And so where I'm going with this is that sometimes I think buyers and agents feel that if the offer price is a certain amount, you always offer a little less, or you always offer a little bit more, or who knows, right? And so what I wanted to do is sort of go through the process that we would go through if we were going to make an offer, right? And because I don't need that. For some reason, I always have difficulty with the chanting. All right. So first of all, what are the things that I put together when I'm showing property? And this is for a client where we're already in escrow. In fact, we're going to be closing hopefully next week. It's the first one. But you'll notice that as we were showing properties, and this is a Google Sheet, which I had shared with the buyers, and they were able to add things to it. And they were typing in proposed offers, bedrooms, bathrooms, lot size, the city. That really wasn't necessary, but I made this from a template. And then age of the property, offer due dates, which I would get from the MLS. Now, one of the annoying things about offer due dates in the MLS is that there is no system set up to automatically tell you if the listing agent has changed the offer due date. Right? The only way to know is to look at it every day, maybe once in the morning and once in the evening. Can you set up something that notifies you if the listing is changed? The answer is yes, but not if the change is something that is written into the private remarks. A change that would trigger a reminder to you would have to be a change that is in one of the other fields, which the offer due date is not. Right, so this is an issue, right? Because this morning, you might look and it'll say we're taking offers on next Tuesday, and by this afternoon, they might have changed it. Right now, if the listing agent is doing it right, they would notify everybody who's downloaded the disclosure or who has shown the property, assuming the listing agent has a system to do any of that stuff. And would let you know, hey, we're starting to get a lot of interest, so we're not waiting till next Tuesday. We're taking offers tomorrow, right? But there isn't an easy way to find this out, right? You just have to check or hope the listing agent, contacts you. Then are there disclosures, right? Now, remember, this is something that I have made available to my clients. So here are the different disclosure links, right? Most of them are disclosures IO. Occasionally it's something else. Then the next one is, I say Calendly, but because I actually am happier when I see that one. Let me see if I can move over. All right. So what I want is, what are the showing instructions? right? And that's because sometimes when we're out and about and I need to pull up the showing instructions on my phone, Google Sheets works really easily. And then you're going to see these property reports, right? And I'm going to show you how to make one. And every property that my client is interested in fact, sometimes I do it even before we show it, I run a property report. All right, and I'm just sharing that with you. By the way, nowadays I might, if I'm showing property, include a column for open houses. So that if there's an open house coming up in the weekend, I could let, the clients could see that. By the way, if it's all possible, go with your buyers to the open house. All right, so, but let's say, we're going to go back and look at how you do the property report and all that stuff. But if you call me up and say, how much should we offer on this property? These are some of the questions that I would ask. How many days on market? Now, if the answer is it's 2 days, 4 days, 5 days, that's very different than it's been on the market 45 days or 50 days. And the days on market plus the answers to some of the other questions will determine what kinds of contingencies we're going to have and how much we're going to offer. What about showing activity? How would you know whether or not it's actively being shown? Well, let's say that they're using one of those calendar links. Calendly, there's a bunch of them. Insta something, showing time, there's a bunch of them. But what that would allow you to do, and you can't go back, but you can look forward, is I could look today and see tomorrow how many available showing slots are there, how many are there coming up on Friday. You understand, you can, if they give you a link, you can see, is it being shown a lot? Is it not being shown a lot? How much activity was there at the open house? Right now, you or your clients might know that because you and them were at the open house, but the listing agent would probably tell you this would be one of the questions we might ask later. What is the condition of the property? Now, the reason that I put this on the list is that there's a category of property that is designed for investors, and it's totally different in what they would expect a buyer to do. I had a listing that closed a little over a year ago in Mountain View where the buyer never walked inside the house. Buyer never walked inside. Because it was a tear down. It was the location. It was walking distance to downtown Mountain View. We didn't have a termite report. It's a tear down. We didn't have a property inspection. It's a tear down. Right? Now, when the property reaches a certain level of disrepair, let's just say, the seller and the listing agent are assuming a contractor is going to buy it. And if you're showing property that's like that, you or your client ought to have a contractor that can look at the property and give them a bid. That's what they're expecting on a fix and flip kind of a property, not necessarily, they don't always give you all the reports and inspections, and they don't want an inspection contingency, right? Because it's a tear down and you should be, you should know. Condition of I did that one. How much over asking in that area? And I don't know if anybody has a specific property that you would like to see what an offer would look on. So I'm going to pick one just for fun, unless somebody says, ooh, this one. So let's say I'm looking for a property in 95123. Oh, come on. And we're just going to randomly pick one. Henderson, Dubansky. How about Dubansky? Why not? Right? Nice area. So let's say this is the property, right, that we're going to write an offer on. Now, what we're going to do is take note of the MLS number because we're going to use that later. And what I would typically do is this is 95123. So one of the things that I would do, let's see if this is going to work in a new tab, is I'm going to look at properties that sold, single family, in that zip code, 95123. And what I want to know is in the 0 - 30, in the last 30 days. Now, I'm using MLS Matrix, which is for MLS listings. If you've got Rapatoni or Paragon, CRMLS uses a version of Matrix. There's a way to do this, right? It doesn't necessarily look like this, but there's a way to do this. So there were, come back here. There were 47 matches. All right, 47 sales. So I'm going to click on results, and I'm going to mark all of them. And by the way, one of the useful things that MLS Matrix has is this quick CMA, but it keeps wanting me to share. I'm going to do an export. Now, it's not my goal in this class to teach you how to do an export. Your MLS has classes on how to do things like that. They also answer the phone. Most of them answer the phone on Saturdays. You could ask them. I've created a export called How Much Over. And when I'm going to click on edit just so you can see what's in it, right? So I've got the street address, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, price per square foot, age, DOM is days on market, list price, and sale price, right? So I'm not going to change that. So we're going to go to how much, I'll click on export and save. All right. I'm going to drag this down here for now. All right. Well, that may not have been the best idea. All right. How about this? Okay. Now, what I'm doing with this is, and I've videotaped doing this many times. This is the column for the difference. And this is the percent. And what I'm going to do is highlight that first row, make it bold. It tells Excel something. The difference equals the sales price minus the list price. And the percent equals the difference divided by the list price. And so we are then going to tell the computer that's a percent. Right, and then once I've done this, I'm going to drag it down here and let it go. All right. Now, if I'm showing this to clients, I would go and clean it up because those are all dollar amounts, right? And so, I get rid of the decimals. Days on market, price per square foot is a dollar amount. Anyhow. And then what I often will do here is I will sort it. And I want the largest to the smallest. And so what this is showing is that, look at these up here. All right. So, oops, where are we doing it? Let me do it the other way around. Sort large to small. Am I doing something wrong? Is this hasn't, but yes, it's being recorded. And for a nominal fee, something is wrong with my formula here. I don't know what is the deal. Is it possible that all of them, the difference has a negative sign in it? Yeah, I know that. But, that's really weird. I've never had to do that. Let me just... It
seems like you're adding them. You're not subtracting, you're adding.
How could I have messed this up? All right, the difference equals the sales price minus the list price, right? Which is true. It's less. This equals that divided by that, which is minus 4%. And if this is going where I think it is, there we go. For some reason, I don't know why, but just, sometimes. I've only done this a few thousand times. So this is what I was looking for. So look at these numbers up here, right? These are, here we have a property that sold for 32% over list price, 28%, 27%. Now, I will go down to the bottom, and I'm going to average it So the average was 10. But do you understand that that doesn't necessarily help us, right? Because does that mean we should offer 10% more? Well, that would not have bought any of these properties because they went for above 10% more. It's the ones down here that brought down that. So you understand it. And by the way, this will vary by zip code and property type, right? And it varies from month to month. But we know that last month, on average, in that zip code, people got 10%, and some people were getting 30% and 20%, 15%. This is just something that's good to know, right? Because the average, if it's really, really hot, and then really, really cold, I guess the average temperature is cool, but anyhow, I think it's cool. I think my spreadsheet is fine right now. Now, does everyone understand? You could do this. I mean, this is just, I've watched the video about how I put in those formulas. It's not that complicated. And it also, by the way, sometimes when I'm talking to sellers, days on market and things like that oftentimes line up with the ones that are getting over the market amount. What is the average body temperature? All right, cool. That wasn't that interesting, weren't you guys? I'm just fascinated. All right, so we want to really know what people are getting over asking in that area. And just to have the idea, are there 15%, 20%? Now, that doesn't necessarily answer the question about this property. But there are some zip codes when I've done this and everybody was getting list price or less or just a teensy bit more. Some zip codes people get a lot more. It's good to know. The spreadsheet for showings and disclosures and things like that I already showed you. And what are the AVMs? And an AVM is an automated valuation model. What does Zillow say the property's worth? What is Redfin? You can do Realtor.com. Sometimes they have an estimate. And RPR, I'm going to show you. Now, does that mean that the automated valuation models are right and that's what we should offer? The answer is no. But we need to understand that our clients are going to see it. This session is being recorded. Right? I'm recording it, not using Zoom. But trust me, it's being recorded. It did a countdown at the beginning. I'm just saying. And if it's not, there's not much I can do about it. But I know it's being recorded. Talk to the listing agent. Right? We're going to get into running some of these reports. But you should call the listing agent up and ask them, do you have any offers? Right? And the question, one of the questions which I didn't answer here is... preemptive. So when are offers expected? Will they take a preemptive offer? Right? I've got clients interested in a property in Oakland, and we were going to go, just came on the market, we were going to go look at it by Friday, and I got an email saying they've already got offers, people have made preemptive offers. So the question is, if it says in the MLS that offers are next Tuesday, and you have an interested client, does that mean you can't make an offer until next Tuesday? And the answer is no, that's not what it means. You can go ahead and write up an offer and send it. Now, it's considered polite to maybe ask the listing agent, will the seller look at preemptive offers? And sometimes the listing agent will say in the remarks, we don't want any preemptive offers, right? But the reality is, if I'm a listing agent and I tell you no preemptive offers, don't bother, we don't want them, and you send me one, what am I going to do with it? Delete it? Shred it? Digitally? Or would I be required to tell my client that I have it? And that's the answer. I'd be required. Now, unless the client signs something saying, I don't want preemptive offers, most of them would be curious to hear what it is. So do you have any offers? Will you take preemptive offers? Do you have any idea of the number of offers expected? How would a listing agent know that? And the answer is they could track how many disclosure packages are out. And I know, because I'm actively showing property, listing agents call me after I've downloaded disclosures and they say, hey, are your clients interested? Do you think they're going to make an offer? So the listing agent may have some idea. They might say, well, I've got 3 or 4 saying they're going to make an offer. Maybe, right? And the number of disclosure packages that go out. So if 10 people download the disclosure package, that doesn't mean they're going to get 10 offers. But in certain areas, we know that at least sometimes half turn into offers, sometimes a third turn into the offers. Obviously, if 40 disclosure packages have been downloaded, we can intuit from that there might be a bunch of offers. Do you have an idea of the price that the seller is expecting? Sometimes the list price is not what they're expecting, right? If we offer the list price, would the seller accept it? Their listing agents will say no, right? No, we're expecting more than that. Well, could you give me an idea? Some agents will talk, some won't. Any special terms the seller wants. Any special terms. Now, we want to write an offer that the seller would be inclined to accept. And the seller might need a rent back. The seller might need a long rent back. The seller might, who knows? Usually it's a rent back. Is the terms that sometimes the seller wants a long escrow. Sometimes they need a long escrow and a rent back. Sometimes, whatever. Find out if there's anything special the seller is looking for and whether or not you could include that in your offer. One of the other things that you want to do is look at the pending sales. So what I would be doing is, and I can sometimes do this through RPR or through the MLS, but let's say this is where we're going to write an offer. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go to criteria. And I was sort of going to do this later, but I might as well now. So one of the things that I would do if I was going to write an offer is I'm going to look at active, contingent, pendings, and sold. By the way, there are times when I would run all of them. We don't have a lot of canceled and expireds and withdrawns, but, single family home, let's say, and that address I copied and pasted. So by putting it in the map search, I want to know this is what's happened within a mile. I'm going to start with a quarter mile, and I'm going to go back 90 days. There are 8, right? 8. Why a quarter mile is more relevant of a comparable than a half mile. Half mile is more relevant than a mile, right? Because location, right? Location. And so there's 8 of them, and one of the nice things about MLS Matrix is there's this quick CMA, and so this is going to tell me just within a quarter mile. So look at this one here is pending. It was on the market for 11 days. We look at the square footage and lot size. Age is somewhat similar to ours. And that agent, that listing agent on this one is somebody that I would call because I want to know, what did you get? How many offers? How much over list price? Can you give me any idea? Now, and I have an email that I usually send. And most of the time, the agents will reply. So the way I express it when I communicate with the listing agent is I say, hi, I have a buyer and we're going to be putting an offer on a property that's in the neighborhood of your pending transaction on Pete's Court. Well, I'll assume that's what it says. I can see that yours is going to be closing soon. See, I would go back here and here's the pending one. All right. So this is the agent I would be talking to, right? One of the things that I'm going to look for is close of escrow date is 8/20, right? So that's in 2 days. And the status of this property is pending, not active contingent. What that means is that the contingencies have been removed and the property is going to close in a couple of days. That listing agent is very likely to tell you what the price is. Right? Likely to tell you why not? Right. And so the way I would approach the listing agent is we're writing an offer on a property in the neighborhood, and your listing is undoubtedly going to be a comparable that the appraiser is going to look at. And I was just wondering, would you be willing to share? I can see it's closing in a couple of days. What did it sell for? Right? What was the price? How many offers did you get? What were and at this point, you understand, 2 days, no more contingencies. There's a chance that listing agent is going to tell you. We don't need all of them, but and by the way, that one, there was only one. If I were to go back to the criteria, and if I was really trying to get, if I wanted to get a little more of what's going on, I might go out to a mile, because I'm really interested. Wow, there's 79. How about that? So Dubansky is a 4-bedroom. All right. So what if I'm starting to get a lot of 29 is a lot. So I might just say, how many of these are 4 bedrooms? 14. So how many of these are pending? 1. All right. So let's take that out. All right. There's only 4 pending. So these are some of the properties I would be calling to find out what happened, how many offers did you get, above list price or not, terms, what can you help me, right? We're writing an offer on a property in your area. Would you, help me, right? So that kind of information from the listing agent. You see, first I ran for the ones that closed in the last 30 days. How much over did they get? This is more up-to-date information because these are actual pending sales. Some of them closing in a few days. They're more of a thermometer, barometer as to what's going on. And again, these may be comps for an appraisal. So let's say we know that a very similar one to the one we're writing an offer on is in escrow and it's closing in 2 days, and we know what the price is. And we know that that's going to be a comparable. You understand when your client says, do you think it'll appraise for this? Right? Well, how would you know? Well, you could run comps. First of all, we never really know. Right? You don't know, right? Until the appraiser, does the appraisal. But we want to look at what's been on the market. We want to look at what's closed and sold and the ones that are about to close, because those comps will be the ones that the appraiser is going to look at. Download and share the disclosures. Right? I oftentimes, if my clients are very motivated, I do this even before showing them the property. You saw that spreadsheet. I also run a market report before I show the property so that they already have a chance to have looked at them. Now, either they do or they don't have inspections and disclosures. By they, I mean the listing agent and the seller. If they don't, and this isn't a tear-down kind of property, then it's likely that they're willing to accept an offer with an inspection contingency. And the reason that, by the way, they don't have inspections is because a lot of times, first of all, the agent may not know that it's a good idea, but a lot of times the seller will say, no, what do you mean pay for inspections? When I bought the property, I paid for inspections as a buyer. Now that I'm selling it, I'm not paying for the inspections as a seller. I had to pay for mine. They have to pay for theirs. Now, by the way, if I'm the listing agent, I'm going to explain why that's a bad idea. Because what it will do is it'll give the buyer an opportunity to renegotiate the price in the middle of escrow. There are 2 reasons why escrows don't close, by and large. 2 main reasons. One is the buyer financing falls through, or 2, fighting over repairs. Right? Those are the 2 reasons. And it's going to be harder when we've already taken the property off of the market and we're a couple of weeks into it, and now the buyer says, I want a $30,000 credit because of all these things we found. What do you're in a worse position as the seller. But if they don't have a property inspection and a termite inspection, a roof inspection, and a pool inspection, if they don't have that, then, and it's not a tear down, right, not a contractor special, then they're probably considering that you're going to have an inspection contingency, right? If they have it. Do you need an appraisal contingency? That's a different, I've done a class on that. But again, the question is, how close would we be to appraising at the price based upon the comps? Now, and disclosures, of course, is the SBQ, the TDS. You need to read all that stuff, right? Because how do we know what price to offer, right? There's two factors. One is the market around that property. And number two is the condition of that property compared to the other ones. And so one of the things we want to do is see, and by the way, a lot of the pending sales and even some of the ones that have closed recently, their disclosures are still online, right? You could look at them, right, and see. But the question is, how does our property compare to the ones that we are looking at that are comparables in terms of condition and things like that? Now, what I look for when I'm reading a property inspection, and in a sense, a termite inspection, a roof inspection, and a pool inspection are easier to deal with because those inspectors will give you a dollar amount when they're done. But a property inspector is not going to give you a dollar amount, right? They're just going to say, it looks like there's a plumbing leak. So what we're looking for is when the property inspector says, you ought to have an electrician look at this, or you ought to have a plumber look at this, or you ought to have a roofing contractor look at this, or you ought to, you get where I'm going with this. And every place where they say you ought to have somebody look at this, you should be highlighting that as a buyer's agent and showing it to your buyer. Because that's, should we get another inspection from another inspector? It wouldn't hurt, but it's probably not going to answer the question, what would a plumber charge to fix it? Right? Because you'll get another general inspection without any dollar amounts. A contractor could give you a bid, right? And that whole process, if they have inspections, or don't have inspections and disclosures, that determines to some degree your contingencies. Let's say your client says, well, I want, what will it cost? Right? People are always asking me this, what does it cost for pool maintenance? What is an average room, let's say we're going to remodel the kitchen, what would that cost? Now, the answer is it depends a lot. One of the links that I've thrown in here, and this one is just for San Jose, but if you Google search, I'll show you cost versus value report 2021. Cost versus national remodeling, Pacific region, national, South Atlantic, New England. You can look around. The one that I've done is specific to San Jose, but it's probably not that far off. And then there's a bunch of advertising, and then here it is. Right now, this is a list of different kinds of projects, and from remodeling.com, and what they were attempting to do is to estimate what is the value effect of putting in a $117,000 upscale bathroom addition, right? And this is not perfect in terms of what the value that would be, right? That's not really while I'm looking at this. What I'm looking at it is because they have a list of all of the costs for major types of remodels in our area. They have a list. Now, if you don't want to use that, there's a website, by the way, that would probably answer the question, how much is a bathroom remodel? Well, Google seems to have an idea, between $14,000 and $18,000 from Home Advisor. Home Depot gives you estimates. You get the idea. So they're going to expect you, as the agent, perhaps, to have an idea of what does it cost to do these different things, right? And you could either look at the cost versus value report for your area to look at the costs, or you could use Home Advisor, Home Depot. There are a lot of programs, but obviously the quality of the remodel affects dramatically the cost. You need to do your own AVID at some point, right? It would be better to do that when you're showing the property or after the open house, but, that would be better. Now, writing the offer. I'm not actually going to go through how to fill out the contract. That's a different class. But what you need from your client and what you need to come to some sort of understanding is the price. Terms would be rent back for the seller. Contingencies. The contingencies are, do you need a loan contingency? Do you need an appraisal contingency? Do you need a contingency to sell your property that's going to hurt? Right? Do you need an inspection contingency? How long do you need those contingencies? Right? We need to know that information. Other information you're going to need to know is the legal names and email addresses of your buyers. Legal names. What is an AVID? Isn't that an insect? No. AVID stands for Agent's Visual Inspection Disclosure. An AFID, I think, is something else. An Agent Visual Inspection Disclosure, and under the Transfer Disclosure Law, real estate agents are required to do a reasonably competent visual inspection. I did a class on that not that long ago. Right? Check out my YouTube channel. So we want the legal names and email addresses of the buyers. And sometimes what I say to the buyer is, give us your name the way it's going to appear on a deed. Right? The clients where I just wrote this offer that we're going to close next week, all of my communication with the client, well, let's just say his legal name is not the name that I call him or that he introduced himself as. We want the legal names and email addresses of the buyer, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with it. And now we're getting to the part that will make a huge difference in how quickly this will take you. MLS Connect, RPR, and zip forms. All right. Now, MLS Connect, and wherever you are, there's probably an MLS Connect. If you're in my area, which means Matrix, right, I'm in the MLS listings, and I want to set up MLS Connect. And by the way, if you asked the MLS, they would tell you, or if you Google searched it. But the way to set it up is when you go to information, what you need to make sure is in your system is your NRDS number. And if you don't know what an NRDS number is, it's your National Realtor Identification Number. And if you're wondering how would I find my NRDS number, you could ask Google, how do I find my NRDS number? And you're going to see right there is a way to find your NRDS number. What you need in order for this to work, you need to know your last name and you need to know your Department of Real Estate license number. And when you put in those two things, it will tell you your NRDS number. Now, when we put the NRDS number in Matrix, and by the way, some of you are using MLSs that are far more friendly. You don't even have to do this, right? But if you're in Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, Santa Cruz County, San Benito County, you need to make sure your NRDS number is in your information in the MLS under business information. So what does that, all right, so what are we doing? All right, what are we doing? So let me see, are these all, these are the sold ones. Let me go back. So let me go back, criteria. We're going to do a search. And did I do this? No. All right, do a search. All right, let's say this is the one, right? What we want to do is copy the MLS number, right? We want to copy the MLS number. And then I'm going to hang on to that. First, let's do this first. We're going to copy this. And then we're going to go to RPR, Realtors Property Resource. If you don't know what it is or how to use it, I have videos and there's lots of online stuff. So here's the property. Now, first of all, this is what RPR says. RPR seems to think that this property is worth $1,385,550. right? That's RVM, is the Realtor's Automated Valuation Model. If you're curious as to how they came up with that number, if you click on the number, it's going to show you the comparables. Off-market properties are risky to use. I'll usually look at them, but the reason why they're risky to use is because we don't know what the condition was. However, look at this. Here's one on Dubansky. Off-market, by the way, means it didn't go through the multiple listing service, and it closed for 1.4. But then we don't know what it looks like, right? The ones that went through the MLS, we can at least look at it. So anyhow, what I would do is I would go to create a CMA. And now I'm going to pay attention to this part up here. This is a 4.2 built in 1971, right? They're looking for $677 per square foot. I'm going to confirm the facts. I don't have any reason to think that this is not correct. I haven't seen it. I'm going to find comps. All right, now I'm going to slow down at this point. What I'm going to do is click on active under contract, go down here, last 3 months, and then I'm looking at this property over here, and sometimes if I'm in a hurry, I'll just do a radius. And I'll go out, let's say, 1/2 of a mile and search in this area, and there we go. Now, when I scroll down, what it's going to tell me, remember, it's a 4.2 built in 1971. So as I scroll down, we have a 4.2 built in 1971. Here's a 4.2 built in 1967. All right, here's a 4.2 built in 69, a 4.3. So what I'm really looking is, and as we start to go out further away, like this one's a public record, right? I'm probably going to skip that. The ones that are that aren't in a public record, let's just see. Are there some down here that are probably, maybe that one isn't. Let me just finish this. All right, so we've got those. We're looking for 4.2 1971. That one's a little older, 68. See, they're starting to go further away. I tend to look at the ones that are closest or that are exact matches. So here's one that's a pending 4.2 1971. There's a whole bunch of 4.2s, right? And so sometimes if there's a bunch of them, I might just highlight them, right? And what I'm looking at is to see if any of them are outliers. Let's just do that. All right, so here are all of the 4.2s. Now that's a lot of comps, but notice it gives us a range from 1.1 to 1.6. That's a big range. Why is that one for $646 is bringing down our average? That's this one. Now, if we click on it, this is we don't know what this sold for, because you can tell by the picture that, it didn't go through the multiple listing service. How do I know it didn't go through the MLS? Because they have a Google picture, right? If it had gone through the MLS, they would have had the MLS picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use that one, right? Now, this one, let's just look at it, also did not go through the MLS because, again, you can see the picture, but it closed recently. And so, oops, I don't need that. I don't need that. Where am I? Over here. So, but there's that one. Notice it's now putting us at 1.4 to 1.6. I may not take out all of them, but you understand if it didn't go through the MLS, we don't really know if it was a typical buyer and a typical seller and a typical transaction. And if I had the time and was bored, I might look and see if the names of the people that transferred the title were the same, like the last names, and maybe it was a family thing. So we may be dropping out, right, some of the ones. Now, what's really weird about this, right, I'm just telling you, what's really weird about this is I'm not seeing a lot of sales in the MLS, which is kind of weird. Now, sometimes RPR is not that accurate. Let's go back here. Can you go over a property that would be difficult to comp? I can give you an example. Thank you. This one is turning out difficult to comp. One more thing. Dubansky, half, 27, 4, 13. So according to the MLS, and by the way, sometimes I just do this. I get rid of the coming soon, refined, narrow. All right. So all of these went through the MLS, and I'm not sure why RPR isn't picking them up. But what I'm going to do is, and sometimes if I'm in a hurry, I just do the quick CMA. But the reason I look at the MLS is because what I'm seeing is, like, for example, the one on Cadiz, I don't see them all here, right? Like the one on Cadiz, I don't see it, unless I'm missing it. I don't see them all here. Here's that one, that one, that one. Here it is. It's a pending, but some of the solds aren't there. Now, if I want to get rid of that one, get rid of that one. I'm surprised. This one happens to be a bunch of them that I don't, So let's look at something that, here's a 4.2 built in, we're looking for something built in 1971, so, for example, this one on 743 Dubansky, what's happening is that RPR isn't finding all the MLS information. And now that one was in the MLS. You can tell because it's got 36 photos. All right. So what I'm going to do, right, I'm just going to power through this. So what I do once I've created this, update, valuation, and close, I would create a report. The report I'm going to create is called a property report. I have unchecked some things. So neighborhood housing stats and charts are okay. People stats, economic stats, school summary, all that is fine. I go down here, and typically what I do is I email it to my client, right? But if I don't do that, typically, because I'm lazy, I just email it, and away it goes. Now, somebody had a and by the way, when RPR is done, I don't know why it's doing it. Yeah, I know, report in progress. When RPR is done, it's going to give me a link that's on the cloud where I can put that in my spreadsheet. So I'm not going to, the idea is not to do, there are a lot of them that are hard to comp. Notice this one is very hard to comp. RPR has no estimate. So I'm not going to do that now because that's a little bit, that's way more difficult. What if you can't comp it, right? What if there are no comps? What do you do? Well, one thing you could do is ask the question, when was the property purchased? Let's say the property was purchased 5 years ago, 7 years ago. Is it possible for us to determine what the average and median price of a single-family home was at that time in that city, in that area, 5 years ago or 7 years ago? The answer is yes, that's easy to do statistically. Do we know what the average and median price is today in that area? The answer is yes, that's easy to do. Could we figure out what the percentage change has been? Right? But if we know what it was and what it is, we could figure out how much it's gone up, and we could apply that factor to whatever they paid. Or you simply offer the list price and include an appraisal contingency, because then you're never going to overpay because it's going to have to appraise. So let me just show you about how we're going to write the offer. So where's Dubansky? Here we are. So I'm copying the MLS number. I'm copying the MLS number. Why not? And I'm going to go to, I thought I'd logged in. Home. Maybe not. All right. Now this is where you can really save time if you're willing to do a few things. Right? Now, if you don't know how to do what I'm doing, you need to learn how to use zip forms, which is now known as Lone Wolf. And we're going to log in. The question is, how crucial is it to do an AVID before writing the offer? You can do it after. It's not as significant as a commitment as you might think. The Residential Purchase Agreement and the California Civil Code are way more focused on the listing agent and the seller doing an AVID than the buyer's agent. In fact, the RPA, of course you guys all know this because you've studied the Residential Purchase Agreement, I'm sure. The RPA actually says that the buyer's agent completing the AVID is not a condition of the contract, although they point out it's a condition of the law. So some listing agents want to see your AVID, right? But they want to see it when you've submitted the offer. Others don't care. What the California Civil Code says about it is that if you give, the idea is the listing agent doesn't want to trigger another right of cancellation on the buyer. So if you're a buyer's agent and you do your AVID after escrow has opened, does that give your buyer a right to back out because you just gave it to them? And the answer is no. The Civil Code says buyer's agent's AVID doesn't do that, right? It's the others. So whether you do it or not, sometimes the agent wants it. Sometimes they don't care. It's not the biggest deal. It's on a checklist that your office probably has. Right. So let's see, how would we do this? Right now, I've got the MLS number in my clipboard. I have it. And this is an interesting thing, Seller's Shield. I may do a class on that later. But let's say I'm going to do a new transaction. And it's a new purchase. And what I'm going to do, because I've connected MLS Connect, I'm going to click on MLS Connect. Now, when you're doing this, if it doesn't say a name of an MLS, your MLS is not connected to your ZipForms account. Right? But I'm going to paste that in. Why not a property photo? Pick on Find. And what it's going to do is import all that information. And so what I usually just do is copy that, and it's a residential. Now we come to templates. I've got a bunch of them. Now, there are two kinds of templates. There are a lot more than two. There are buyer and sellers, but let's just talk about on the buying side. The first template I have is one for my company. So I have a Exp Buyer Template. And when I click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to load in all of EXP's information and my information, right? Because I use that template. So when I go to parties and I scroll down, notice the seller, it's a trust, right? Because that's what it says. The seller's information has been imported. Hey, Joe Ventura, how you doing? Look at all the information that's been imported. The listing agent's information has been imported. I'm the selling agent. Notice all of my information has been imported, right? How do you do that? And the answer is you create a template. So if you go to a template, and you can see there's, I've maybe overdone it, and you're going to click on a new template. And what you want to do is to start with two. One of them is a purchase template. So what you would call this basic buyer, you may call it, I'm just making stuff up, it's a residential. I don't automatically apply it to each transaction, I don't. I could start with something, right, by importing one of my things, but I'm just going to save it. So what I've done is I've saved this as a template, right? Now, the only two things really here are, well, I'm not going to do that, but we're going to do parties. So what are the parties that I need for this template? Well, if I'm the buyer agent, then that's, by the way, called the selling agent, just in case you didn't know. The selling agent is the buyer's agent. So here I would put in my name, agent ID we don't need. You put in your DRE number. You put in the brokerage's name. You put in the brokerage's DRE number. You do not need the name of the broker. You do not need the office ID. You do not need the broker's email. You're not going to be emailing them anything. But I would put in phone numbers. I haven't faxed anything in a long time. Street address, city, state, and zip, right? We would fill this out. You can put in the fax number if you want. You want to put in your email address and your cell phone number, right? But, so you would, here, why don't we just do that? All right, why not? Why not? All right. So when we save it, and now we have a buyer, and we don't want to have to type in Exp Real Estate of California Inc. 018782777. We don't want to do that every time we write an offer. We want to do it one time, save it in the template. Now, what I also have done once I've created that template is I've created a template for a particular buyer. So so do you realize that you may be writing more than one offer? Maybe you don't, maybe you're really good. One offer, it's sold, your client has it, but sometimes you have to write more than one offer. I've written a lot of offers for these clients. So what I did is I took my basic buyer template, and what I added to that was the name and email addresses of the buyer. That's all we need, is the name and email addresses of the buyer. That's all we need. Name and email addresses of the buyer. So I don't have to do that every time. So when I have an offer that I'm going to write, I apply the buyer's template, which has my information, office information, and their information. And using MLS Connect, that's the property information. I have 90% filled out the offer. All I need is price and terms. Now, so this report, by the way, which we produced, this is something I would give to the buyer, right? I would give it to them, and you could select which ones. This link up here, that link in the URL, is a link you can use. I paste that link in the spreadsheet. And that means that my clients, first of all, I've emailed it to them, but in the spreadsheet is that link so that they could click on it and look at the property report anytime they wanted to. But there's another reason why I was going here, like this particular property, right? Let's say that this was not in the MLS, right? I can tell it is because it's got 47 photos. But let's say it was not in the MLS. Or how about this? It's not in my MLS. So my MLS is MLS listings, but let's say the property is in Bay East, which is Bridge MLS. That MLS Connect will not work outside of your MLS. So if I'm writing an offer on a property that's not in my MLS, how do I import the information? And the answer is, in RPR, you go to this little icon and you click on Connect, and what it's going to do is it will start a transaction for you, start a new zip forms transaction, right? And since it's the same property as this, I don't know, but it will, and the import from RPR is not as good as the import from the MLS. It has more information, right? But what you want, going back to my list, is you're going to want to have templates. A template for your buyers, a template with your information, a template that has your contact information. My suggestion is you have, because a lot of the sellers and the listing agents want you to initial and sign all of the disclosures and things like that. You should use a transaction coordinator. That's my feeling. But you also need to know how to do it yourself, because sometimes offers need to be written on Sunday night, and the transaction coordinator often has a life and isn't going to be doing it at 10 o'clock Sunday night, but you're trying to get an offer in so that you can get a big commission check. You need to learn how to do e-signatures yourself. So we send the offer. Now, sometimes the listing agent is going to say, I want you to upload it to Disclosures.io. Sometimes they don't say anything. So if you email it to them, it's often a good idea to summarize it in the email and say, like what I do is I put the address of the property in the subject line, space, hyphen, space, offer, all caps, just so the listing agent knows I'm making an offer on their listing. And then I would add maybe a little paragraph that says, you know, you attach, you're going to find our offer. We're offering $3.9 million. We have no contingencies, plan to close in 30 days. And then you attach the RPA, or if it's the probate purchase agreement or commercial purchase agreement or whatever it is, you attach contingency removals, if there are any, proof of funds, the loan letter. It's a good idea not to do the love letters, because it's up to you, but many companies don't want you doing it. Lawyers don't want you doing it. And frankly, I think that sellers ought to decide who they're going to sell their house to without looking at a picture of the buyer's family. Thank you for pasting it in for me, whoever did that. So no, don't do that. I think that it's, we don't really want them making the decision based upon a picture of the buyer and the buyer's family. A lot of offices are telling you don't do it. If there's a requirement for a disclosure package, they want that attached. Sometimes they want your AVID, sometimes not. If they don't, well, they'll be on you, right? So I don't know, if you set up MLS Connect, RPR Connect, right? And by the way, those people answer the phone and they would help you, right? If you're wondering how to do it, if you create templates, one for listings, one for buyers, and then if you've got an active buyer, make one for that active buyer, right? That has their name on it, so that if you're writing another offer from them, you don't have to type it up again. When I'm helping agents write offers, sometimes we spend 30 minutes to an hour for the agent just to be manually typing in, right, their name, the company name, the name of the, it's painful, right? This is why I'm usually heavily medicated, because I sit and watch for 30 minutes, and then finally, when all of that is done, it takes 5 minutes to write the offer. Because if you know the price and you know the terms, most of the time is data entry. Most of the data entry can be streamlined by setting up templates and by using MLS Connect. And at the end of this, could you please tell me where I can find the presentations? I have a YouTube channel, as somebody has mentioned. If you don't know what my YouTube channel is, it's Think Real Estate. That's the name of my YouTube channel. And if you're an agent either with EXP or not with EXP, and you're interested in finding out ways in which you can increase your production, increase your make more money in real estate through coaching or some sort of a help with that, reach out to me. Right? Just reach out to me. I would be happy to talk to you about that. All right. Good enough for one day, you guys? Was that, hopefully that was helpful, because that's all I got. Don't everybody overwhelm me with, very good, great. All right. I'm going to probably do a class next week, because I've been thinking about this. All of the systems, some which don't cost anything, that you ought to be running in the background to make this whole process a whole lot easier. extensions and weird little programs that I use to do things and make it more efficient. Maybe I'll do that next Wednesday. Sounds like fun. All right, that's it, guys. Have a great day. Stay safe out there, everybody. Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you.